Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we have no further questions, and we withdraw our motion.
Thank you.
How many conversations did you have with Ronald Konitzer?
1 or 2.
Over the telephone?
Yes.
And the length of each of those conversations?
Minutes.
Minutes? Did you ever see Ronald Konitzer interact with Michael Jackson?
Not since I had met him in Europe on tour years before.
So you're talking about conversations that may have taken place when, in the early 90s?
Yes.
All right. Since the early 90s, have you seen him interact with Mr. Konitzer?
Physically, no, just on the phone.
Did you hear him interact with him on the telephone, in other words, conversations where you were present?
When Mr. Schaffel was setting up the interview.
Yes.
Ronald was there with Michael.
Was that the only conversation that you had, were party to?
No.
Involving Mr. Jackson and Mr. Konitzer?
No, there was 1 or 2 after that. Just, after the interview, thanking me, saying everything was going to be fine, and I don't recall if there was another one after that.
Was Mr. Jackson involved in those conversations?
No, he was not.
That was just a conversation with you and Mr. Konitzer?
No, Mark would have been on the phone. He did not have my phone number.
All right, so it was a conversation involving you, Mark Schaffel and Ronald Konitzer?
Yes.
And the subject of that conversations was what?
Superficial. About the video.
Nothing about Mr. Jackson's business affairs?
No, not with Michael on the phone, no.
Did any of them talk to you about issues dealing with the Martin Bashir video?
Before or after the interview?
After the interview.
When the interview aired, it did, and they said that the interview that I had done would help deflect and do damage control.
Did they say that to you more than once?
Yes.
Did Mr. Konitzer say positive things to you about your involvement in this interview?
About my possible involvement?
No.
I'm sorry.
Did he say positive things to you about your involvement?
Yeah.
Did he say that you were helpful?
Yeah.
Did you believe that you were?
Yeah.
Was that your intent?
Yes.
All right. Do you still like Michael Jackson?
I have very strong memories and feelings for the Michael that I have known but haven't seen since 1999. But those are based on my feelings. We haven't spoken.
All right. Is it the case that the sum total of your communication with Mr. Jackson since 1999, 6 years ago, was a 2.5-minute conversation that you described?
Correct.
And that was a conversation where he asked you to participate in this video. Is that correct?
To work with Ronald, Dieter, and Mark.
Is it clear to you that he understood that you wanted to see your children?
Yes.
All right. Did he ever call you to say that?
No.
Or to invite you up to come see the children?
No, he didn't.
Who do you believe is responsible for your not being able to see the children?
Objection. Relevance. Foundation.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
He's their father. Ultimately, it's his decision. I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that it's other people. I want to believe it's Mark Schaffel threatening him that I want to take the children, things like that.
How long has Mark Schaffel been involved with Michael Jackson? When do you believe was the end of Mr. Schaffel's involvement with Michael Jackson?
I think the Ivy incident was probably what tore it.
All right.
Mark told me he was on the outs and wanted to do what he could to get back in.
When did he file the lawsuit against Michael Jackson?
I don't know how long it takes to actually get to court when you file a paper, or whatever, but he had talked about it about 3 months ago.
All right.
So I don't know if he was filing the papers then, if he was getting ready to file the papers.
All right. But your understanding is that Mark Schaffel hasn't had anything to do with Michael Jackson for a number of months now, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And yet you're still being denied access to your children?
Objection. Leading. Relevance. Foundation.
Overruled.
Is that true?
Yes.
All right. Well, then who do you think is responsible for that, if it's not Mark Schaffel?
Objection. Relevance. Foundation. Leading. and opinion.
It's argumentative. Sustained.
Tell us, in your opinion, who is responsible at this time for your not being able to have access to your children?
Same objection.
Overruled.
When I was first promised to see the kids, when he called me, for me to show up when they were at that age of 3 and 4, 4 and 5, I could be introduced as a friend of Daddy's. And you don't confuse a child by saying, "Oh, this is your mother." I can't do that now. They're too old. To do something like that, it would be too traumatic. I would not walk in and say, "Hey, I'm your mom. Want to go out?" It's so much more complicated than that when reintroducing yourself to children who may or may not remember me.
Are you saying that you believe that Mr. Jackson is amenable to your seeing your children? It's just a question of how?
Objection. Leading. Argumentative. No foundation.
It's impeachment, Your Honor, as to the leading issue.
Improper opinion.
The objection is overruled. Do you want the question read back?
No, thank you. I'm hoping in my heart that he is. But we haven't spoken, so I don't know. I get to deal with Abrams and Hall.
Why do you believe he hasn't spoken with you?
Objection. Leading. Argumentative. Foundation. Relevance.
Overruled.
I don't know if he is concerned about this case. I don't know what his concerns are, if he thinks I'm going to take the children from him. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. I don't know.
How many conversations have you had with Dieter Weisner?
The last conversation I had with Dieter I think was at the Ivy.
And how many conversations prior to that?
1 or 2.
You said that you were set up, is that correct, at that?
In my opinion.
Lunch?
Yes.
What does that mean, set up?
You don't go to lunch and then call the paparazzi to come and take a picture of you while you're trying to have a salad, and then someone runs across the street and almost gets hit by a car because they're taking my picture.
You didn't mention that in cross-examination when you said that to Mr. Mesereau.
Oh, sorry, I thought.
Is that what it was that you believed to be the setup?
Yes, because Michael was having a meeting with some group of people at the Beverly Hills Hotel or something. And Mark and Dieter were not included. So they were going to show him.
Alright, what does the presence of paparazzi have to do with that?
I'm assuming because Mark Schaffel could not get to Michael, that if someone were to see it on TV or something, then it would be detrimental to him.
How long has Michael Jackson had an association with Ronald Konitzer?
I know that he knew him in the 90s doing marketing and things like that in Europe. I don't know, I haven't had any involvement with Michael since 99, so I don't know.
Alright, you offered the opinion that you believe that this group of people are taking advantage of him.
Yes.
Have you ever actually seen them interact with him?
No.
Are you aware of any of the transactions that have taken place between Mr. Konitzer and Michael Jackson?
Just when Konitzer was on the phone with Michael to tell me that it was okay to work with these people to do what needed to be done for the project.
And would you consider that to be a conversation for Mr. Jackson's benefit?
Objection. Foundation. Vague.
It's her opinion.
Sustained.
The conversation that you had over the telephone with Mr. Konitzer involving your involvement in a rebuttal was supposed to diffuse a difficult situation that Mr. Jackson was in. Is that correct?
That was my understanding.
So that was for his benefit, for Mr. Jackson's benefit?
Correct.
Objection. Argumentative. Same objection. Foundation. Opinion.
Overruled.
Correct.
And that's correct. How many conversations have you been party to between Mr. Konitzer and Mr. Jackson?
Just the one.
That was the only one?
Yes.
So you don't really know what extent of communication they had between each other, is that correct?
Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence. Foundation. Move to strike.
Overruled.
Only what I was told.
Ah, and told by whom?
By Mark.
Only Mark, is that right?
And Dieter.
Okay, Mark is the person you believe to be an inveterate liar, is that correct?
Yes.
He told you that he was making $7.5 million off of this production, the Maury Povich production?
Correct.
Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I was told.
Did you believe he was profiting from that production?
Yes.
Did you understand that production to be a production for profit?
I didn't care.
But did you understand it to be a production for profit?
If I assumed that, if you're going to make it and sell it, yes, it's for profit.
And you understood it was being sold?
Yes.
You understood it was being marketed?
Yes.
And that, in fact, was Mark Schaffel's job, was to market that film?
Yes.
And your involvement in it was to make it more marketable, is that true?
Correct.
Do you think it was inappropriate for Mark Schaffel to make a profit off that film?
Objection. Improper opinion. Calls for speculation. Foundation.
Sustained.
In your opinion, should he have made some profit off that film?
Same objection.
Sustained.
Do you have any reason to brief that Michael Jackson didn't receive any profit off that film?
Same objection.
Sustained.
Are you aware that Michael Jackson was given over $1 million in cash by Mark Schaffel during that period of time?
Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence. Foundation. Move to strike.
Sustained.
Now, I'd ask you your number of conversations with Dieter Weisner. Is Weisner somebody you knew back in the early 90s as well?
He said I'd met him. I don't remember. I met a lot of people when Michael was on tour. There was a ton of people involved.
Did you have a face-to-face conversation with Dieter Weisner in 2003?
For the at the Ivy. Not for the interview or anything.
And the Ivy was just the lunch that you had with them?
Yes.
Did you stay and actually have a lunch?
I was a wreck. They moved us inside until it was completely out of control, and I had to leave.
So you didn't really have a conversation with him?
We did talk.
About what?
About how they were going to, that the people that were on the other side of town were inching them out and not including them, and that this would show them and get their attention because I was with them.
Alright, now, this was in 2004, is that right?
I don't remember the date.
This is well after the indictment was returned against Mr. Jackson, is that correct?
No, it was. I believe it was before.
Were you?
I don't remember the date.
Were you already involved in having given information to law enforcement regarding this investigation?
I think so. I don't remember.
You described Mr. Jackson as a brilliant businessman.
Yes.
Is that a true statement?
In my opinion, yes.
During the years that you knew him, you understood him to be very talented at the business end of his career, is that correct?
I thought so.
He was successful in making an awful lot of money during the years you knew him, is that right?
Yes.
And he knew Mr. Konitzer and Mr. Weisner for over 10 years, didn't he?
I don't know how long they'd known each other. I don't remember when they met. I remember meeting, like I said, I remember meeting Ronald when he was showing marketing things to Michael. I don't even remember what city we were in.
But it was the early 90s, was it not?
Yeah, it would have had to have been. So, yeah, I guess that would be 10 years.
Would the same be true as to Dieter Weisner?
I don't remember meeting Dieter. Even though he said I did, I don't remember.
So when did you understand Mr. Weisner's involvement with Michael Jackson to begin?
The man carried 6 cell phones. I wasn't sure if he was a liaison, if he was doing the European marketing and working with Mark Schaffel doing the American things. All I knew is that the 3 of them were.
Who are we talking about right now?
Ronald, Mark and Dieter were involved directly in the video and saving Michael after this documentary came out.
Alright, is there anything that you saw that was put out to any of the tabloids or any of the newspapers by any of the 3 of them that you felt was negative to Michael Jackson?
What do you mean?
Well, you talked about Mr. Schaffel giving information out to the tabloids, is that right?
Yes, but he did it too. He said he could run interference. That was why he had Ian Drew as a plant at the Globe, to run interference, because, I didn't know this, but I guess the magazines are all owned by the same company and they shuffle the stories around.
What kind of interference?
To keep bad stories or gossip, or whatever, out, so he would release good information to someone he thought was more reputable.
Bad stories about whom?
Michael.
Alright, so the work that they were doing was trying to boost his reputation?
Correct.
And improve his reputation?
Correct.
Not destroy him.
After this documentary, correct.
Alright, was it your understanding that the more money Michael Jackson was capable of making translated to the more money those three men were capable of making?
Objection. Foundation. Relevance.
Sustained.
Did you know Frank Cassio?
Yes.
How did you know Frank Cassio?
I met his family years ago.
Years ago?
Yeah.
How old was Frank Cassio when you met his family?
It was just after little Michael had been born. He must have been middle teens maybe. He was the oldest of the boys.
You didn't know him as a person who was involved in Mr. Jackson's relationships or business affairs.
No.
He was a teenager?
This is years ago. We're talking.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Did he visit Mr. Jackson regularly?
The family came up. I knew him with the family, when Mr. and Mrs. Cassio were there with the kids, with the boys.
Did you understand Frank Cassio's relationship with Michael Jackson to be very close?
He was close with all the Cassios.
Did you know Vinnie Amen?
No.
You made the statement, if I'm considered a commodity of Mr. Jackson. What did that mean?
Objection. Misstates the evidence. She was talking about Mr. Schaffel.
Overruled. You may answer.
Do you remember making that statement?
Yes.
What did that mean?
I was sellable.
Do you mean in conjunction with your giving this interview?
Yeah. I don't do interviews.
Did you ever give an interview for the press?
I did a couple of things with Chuck Henry in the late 70s. He was a newscaster for NBC in Los Angeles.
You've given no interviews other than that?
Not personally, no.
Did you believe that made you more marketable?
To do the interviews?
Yes.
I don't want to be marketable.
I didn't ask that. I said, do you believe that it made you more marketable? In other words, for somebody else?
Yeah.
Do you believe that you were asked to participate in this interview because it would make the film more marketable?
Objection. Calls for speculation. Foundation.
It's her opinion.
An improper opinion.
Sustained for speculation.
Did any of the three of them, Konitzer or Weisner or Schaffel, talk to you about your participation in this video in terms of mentioning that it would make the film more marketable?
Yes, and that it would help Michael.
Help Michael Jackson in terms of its marketability?
Of the damage control from the Bashir documentary thing, show.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you, Judge.
Call your next witness.
Iris Finsilver, please. Your Honor, I'm sorry. I believe this may take a moment. I believe she's upstairs.
When you get to the witness stand, please remain standing.
Remain standing.
Please remain standing.
Oh, yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Face the clerk and raise your right hand.
I do.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Iris Joan Finsilver. Iris Joan Finsil. V as in, Victor, ER.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Finsilver, good morning.
Good morning.
You're not used to being on that side of the witness stand, are you?
No, I'm not.
What is your occupation?
I'm a lawyer.
How long have you been an attorney?
I was admitted to the Bar of Michigan in or about 1986.
In then California?
In California, I believe I was admitted in 1989.
What kind of a practice do you have?
Family law.
And family law means what?
Divorce, custody, child custody, support, family matters.
Alright, is Debbie Rowe Jackson your client?
Yes.
How long has she been your client?
Since in or about 1996.
Did you represent her in her divorce with Michael Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Do you continue to represent her?
Yes, sir.
Were you present at the filming of an interview that took place in Calabasas at the residence of Mark Schaffel back in February of 2003?
Yes, sir.
Prior to doing that, had you engaged in any legal work to be able to allow Deborah Rowe to participate in that interview?
Yes, sir.
What was the purpose of that?
It was. She had signed a confidentiality agreement, and in order for her to speak of Mr. Jackson, she would have to be released from the confidentiality agreement for the express purpose of speaking about Mr. Jackson.
Did you draft that waiver of confidentiality?
I think it was a mutual effort between Mr. Jackson's lawyers and myself. It was in fact, yes.
But it was one that was drafted as a document?
Yes, sir.
And was it one that required signatures?
Yes, sir.
Whose signatures were required on that document?
Mr. Jackson's and Deborah Rowe Jackson's.
And did Debbie Rowe sign the document?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge, did Mr. Jackson sign the document?
Yes, sir.
And following the signing of that document, did Miss Rowe participate in an interview?
Yes, sir.
Were you present during the interview?
Yes, I was.
Were you present during the entirety of the interview?
Yes.
Approximately how long did that interview last?
Well, I can tell you the whole day was about 9 hours. And I can't exactly tell you how long the filming took place. It was many hours of filming throughout a 9-hour day.
Alright, was there a man by the name of Mark Schaffel present?
Yes, sir.
Did you know Mark Schaffel prior to that day?
I had never met him prior to that day.
Did you know his name prior to that day?
I believe I did.
In what context?
In that he would be.
Objection. Relevance and foundation.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, you don't need to be told that, do you?
In that he would be part of the interview that was going to be taking place, so that's how I heard of his name. And I knew that we were going to be going to Mark Schaffel's home, where the filming was conducted.
And was that where it was conducted, at his home?
Yes, sir.
Was he present during the interview?
Yes, sir.
Was he present during the entirety of the interview?
Yes.
Did he periodically make comments with regards to the answers or questions that were given?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Thank you. Yes.
Did you hear any representations from Mr. Schaffel at any time during the course of the filming that dealt specifically with the subject of Ms. Rowe's children?
Yes.
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. The answer was, yes. Next question.
What were those representations?
Objection. Hearsay.
Relevant for prior stated purposes.
Overruled. You may answer.
Go ahead.
I heard him, in connection with her answers, when she would give a favorable answer. Oh, Michael will be very, very pleased about this. You're really helping him out of a big jam, and you'll go to Neverland and you'll see Michael and your kids.
On how many occasions did he give an answer of that nature?
I recall 2 specific times. There may have been more. I just.
Objection. Move to strike.
The last sentence is stricken.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Mr. Mesereau?
No examination, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness.
Your Honor, I want to get an exhibit book.
All right.
I was going to ask permission to go between there, but all. I apologize, Your Honor. I thought it would be a little faster than we expected, but we are moving ahead of schedule.
That's fine.
Call Andrew Dietz, Your Honor.
Come forward, please. When you get to the witness stand, remain standing. Face the clerk and raise your right hand.
I do.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Andrew R. Dietz, Dietz.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Dietz, you have a business. You're going to have to lean into that mic. Okay?
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you have a business?
Yes, I do.
And what is the name of your business?
Heir Apparent, Inc.
And where is your business located?
Los Angeles, California.
And what is the nature of the business?
It's a retail travel agency.
And basically, could you describe for us what that means? What's a retail travel agency do?
We arrange transportation.
And any other services you provide in addition to transportation?
Not that I can think of.
In connection with that transportation, you make reservations at hotels and things like that?
Yes, certainly.
Now, in that particular business, what is your position?
I'm the president.
And how long have you been associated with that business?
Since 1980.
Now, is one of your clients MJJ Productions?
Yes.
And how long has MJJ Productions been a client of yours?
I believe around 15 years.
And what is the nature of the business services that you provide to MJJ Productions?
We arrange hotel, air transportation, commercial air transportation, car reservations for many of the people that he employs and engages in work for himself.
Can you describe to the jury what the business relationship is in terms of how the services, once they're provided, how they're invoiced and paid and how that works?
A call. I think if you're asking how is business conducted.
Yes.
A call's typically made and a reservation is usually made, a ticket is usually generated. It's then invoiced and sent to the client.
Now, at the time that the ticket is made, do you have to pay for the ticket yourself?
The minute the ticket is issued, it's my obligation to pay the carrier.
Okay, I guess that was the question. And then you pay it and then invoice the client?
Correct.
And then the client repays you?
Correct.
Was that the type of business arrangement that you had with MJJ Productions?
Yes.
Now, at some point back in 2004, did members of the Sheriff's Department come to your business and execute a search warrant with regard to your records?
Yes, they did.
And those records involved MJJ Productions, is that correct?
Yes.
And the time period covered by that was March, February and March of 2003?
I believe that's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Dietz, I'm going to hand you a book, and there are a number of exhibits in the book. And the first exhibit I'd like you to look at begins with 223 and I'd like you to look just quickly through 249, and ask you if you examined those documents yesterday, just to ensure they're the documents that you examined.
Through what number?
249.
Did you say 239?
249.
I believe these are all the records that we reviewed last night.
And those records are records from your business, is that correct?
That is correct.
Excuse me, sir.
That is correct.
And these records generally deal with what type of transactions?
Airline reservations, or airline tickets.
And are they records dealing with your business relationships with MJJ Productions?
They are invoices which reflect transactions that we did.
I think you're going to have to lean into that mic a little bit.
Those are invoices that relate to tickets that were issued to MJJ Productions.
Now, are these generally the records that are kept in the regular course of your business?
Yes, but not in the manner in which they were given to you.
What do you mean by that?
I mean the invoices are separated from the copies of the tickets.
Okay, we'll get to that. But both of those documents are kept in the regular course of your business, is that correct?
Yes.
And the transactions that are reflected in those documents, do those reflect transactions that were made at or about the time that those events occurred?
I believe they do.
By people who are in your organization who are responsible for documenting those?
Yes.
Let's turn. If you could get that exhibit book and put it back in front of you, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
With regard to, let's turn to exhibit number 224, if we can.
Okay.
All right, on.
224?
Yeah. 224. 224.
Gotcha. All right.
224 has 2 pages in it, correct?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the first page, what is the title of that document?
It's called an itinerary, invoice number.
Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain to us how that document's generated?
An agent in the office will book a reservation. The reservation system will then, at the agent's queue, ticket the reservation for the itinerary in question, and then an e-ticket is basically created for a passenger to be picked up at Los Angeles International Airport.
And then with regard to that particular document, how do you use that in your business?
To collect money.
To collect money. That's the invoice part of it?
That's the invoice part. The itinerary part is related to for the accountant, business manager, to see the nature of see the actual details of the flight, as would the ticket show you the same things, as relates to dinner or how long the flight was, things like that.
Alright, so these are generated at or about the time of the transaction, contemporaneous with the transaction?
Yes, in most cases.
And you say the invoice part of it. How does it serve as an invoice? How do you use that in your business practice?
I mail them out for my services, and I expect them to get paid in a timely manner.
Okay. Now, the second part of that exhibit 224 has what is called an agent coupon, correct?
Correct.
Alright. Would you explain to us what the agent coupon is?
The agent coupon, I believe, represents our copy of the transaction for purposes of maintaining it for our regulatory people. In the airline business, you have to report your weekly sales of airline tickets.
So that would be a record used by you to be audited.
We present the, quote, auditor's coupon, and we retain the agent coupon. A ticket has many different, has flight coupons, as well as agent coupons, passenger coupons, and auditor coupons.
And how is the document, agent coupon generated or prepared?
It's one of, as I just stated, it's I think a 5-part document.
But internally that document is generated within your business?
Within our reservation system.
Now, within your company, with regard to the agent coupon document, are those located in a separate place in your business?
Yes.
So they're not located exactly with the invoice and the itinerary information?
Definitely not.
But they're both located and kept for business purposes?
Correct.
And are the exhibits contained in the ones that you reviewed, 223 through 239? Sick. Are those records regularly relied upon by you to conduct business?
I believe they are, yes.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit 223 through 249 into evidence as business records.
No objection.
All right, they're admitted.
And with the court's permission, I'd like to remove a couple of the documents to publish.
All right.
To ask some further questions. I don't need the lights just yet, Your Honor. There are 2 other documents that I want to show you before we go through the publication process. And I'm showing them to counsel. These have been marked, Your Honor, as 852, which is a 3-page document from heir apparent, and 853, which is a 5-page document, or 5 pages in the document, which is also an heir apparent record. And may I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz, I'm going to hand you the exhibit marked as Exhibit 852. I'd like you to take a look at that for just a moment.
Okay.
Go ahead and take a look at the pages in that document. They're multiple pages. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
Those are also documents that were obtained through the search warrant?
I believe so.
And those are also records that are kept in the normal course of your business?
I believe so.
And it is also, just for the record, an itinerary, invoice record, correct?
Correct.
And let me show you 853 and ask you if you recognize that. And the pages attached, there are 5 pages.
Yes.
Do you recognize those documents?
Yes, I do.
And you were able to compare those documents to your actual business records to ensure that they were part of the records that were taken pursuant to the search warrant, correct?
Yes.
And with regard to those records, they were also made at or about the time of the transaction.
Yes.
By personnel.
Yes.
In your office and kept in the normal course of business?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Your Honor, I'd move to admit 852 and 853.
No objection.
They're admitted.
All right. Now, Your Honor, if we could have the Elmo, I'd appreciate it. The document that's up there is 223, which is in evidence, okay. Now, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Now, at the top of the document I'm indicating a customer number. Are the individuals that you service assigned a customer number?
Yes.
And that number carried over to all the business transactions that you conduct with that particular individual or company?
Several accounts have different companies. There are some accounts that have different customer numbers.
In other words, an individual or a business may have more than one account with you.
Correct.
Okay. But wherever they are billed to, that number is used, either on one of the accounts or on another account with regard to that business or individual.
The MJJ Productions had more than one account.
Correct. Now, the information at the top, it says, MJJ Productions. What is that information in terms of how you conduct your business?
That's the mailing. That's the mailing address that we've been requested to send invoices to.
And with regard to the next line down, it says, FR, and has, Gavin Arvizo, Star Arvizo, Janet Arvizo. Do you see that?
Yes.
And what does that information reflect?
I believe it reflects the passengers' names.
And obviously the next says, travel itinerary. This is the itinerary that was explored for these individuals, is that correct?
Correct.
And lastly, it indicates whether the ticket is a one-way ticket or a round-trip ticket, correct?
Correct.
In this case, this particular itinerary that was looked into was a one-way ticket for those individuals?
Correct.
Now, with regard to this particular document, look in the book, if you would, to the document in front of you that's 224, okay?
Yeah.
On that particular document, the heading on it is, Itinerary and Invoice, correct? On 224?
Yes.
And this particular document only reflects the itinerary on the date of February the 5th, correct, of 2003?
Correct.
What is the difference, if there is one, in the use between the document reflected in 223 and the document that you just spoke about in 224?
Well, the itinerary typically is a document which you would fax to somebody or email somebody to inform that, to more or less confirm with the person that requested the transportation that, this is the itinerary request.
Okay. And?
Correct? And then we expect, that's right. Ticket it.
And with regard to the travel itinerary, I want to go back to the date underneath where it says, Travel Itinerary, on 223, it says, the 5th of February, 03. That would be the date of travel?
That's correct.
Okay. We can take that one down. Alright. This is Exhibit 852, alright?
Yes.
Could you explain to us what this particular document is that is displayed as 852 and that has the heading, Itinerary, Invoice Number?
This is primarily what I refer to as an invoice. And as I was relating before, besides showing you how much the tickets cost, it also provides an itinerary for the passenger, or for the person paying the bill, so that they can see that, whatever flight information they want to see from that.
Alright. Now, in this particular document, 852, it reflects that the customer, it has a customer number, correct?
Correct.
Is that the customer number for one of the accounts for MJJ Productions?
Yes.
And then the to section on this particular document, 852, is where you would send the bills to?
That's correct.
Right below are a couple of names. What are those names? Why are those names on that itinerary?
That probably represents the passengers flying.
And then under travel itinerary, then that is the flight information, correct?
That is correct.
And then on the travel itinerary it has, above, on the line where I'm showing, it shows American Airlines Flight 1245, and then it has across there, business. What does that reflect?
The type of service, business class.
Business class. And to your knowledge, how many types of services or classes are there on ordinary domestic flights?
Primarily coach and first class. They throw in business as well.
And then down at the bottom it would be the total amount due on this particular invoice?
That's correct.
Alright. The second page of the exhibit 852, what is that?
That's a copy. That's the agent coupon.
This is what you told the jury about earlier in your testimony.
Yes.
And with regard to this particular document, the information that is on this document, does it give flight information?
Yes.
And does it give the name of the individual on it?
Certainly.
So in this case, it says, Christopher Carter, correct?
Correct.
And it also contains the amount of money that's paid?
Correct.
Alright. The third and last document of page 852 is another agent coupon, correct?
Yes.
It reflects a different name on it, is that right?
Correct.
And the name being?
Danny Crawford.
And these two names are the same names that are on the front page of the invoice itinerary that you earlier talked about as Exhibit 852. I don't know if you have that in front of you. We can put that back up. Here it is. Same two names under the FOR section, FOR, in 852, correct?
The first one said Christopher Carter. That makes sense. The second one said Danny Crawford.
And they correspond to the agent coupons that go with this document?
Yes.
The flight information matches up, is that correct?
Hold on 1 second. If you go back to the ticket, I can tell you.
Alright, put the agent coupon back up. You may want to heighten that up a little bit.
I'm trying to look first.
Okay.
Can't see the flight information. J American Airlines. I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar with these documents.
Your Honor, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Let me.
I couldn't hear the witness's last answer.
There was no question pending, I don't think.
He was asked to look at he said something about, sounded like he said, I'm not familiar, and I couldn't hear what he said.
I said, do you want me to answer?
He said that he wasn't that familiar with the document.
Thank you, Your Honor.
What do you want me to tell you about this document?
Let me just put that down. Let's put 852 back up. This is. Alright, on the document, 852, it has two airline ticket numbers, correct, in the lower left-hand corner?
I can tell you if they're the same ticket numbers for sure.
You have to turn into the microphone.
I can tell you if they're the same numbers if you go back.
You got ticket numbers on the invoice and itinerary.
That I can see. 465, 466.
Okay, and then if you put up the other two.
466 and 465.
They match?
That matches.
So they go with that flight?
I believe they do.
Alright, wasn't supposed to be that hard. It's hard to see from here. No problem. Let's try 853. Alright, now, this 853 is another document that's an itinerary invoice, correct?
Yes.
For March 2nd?
Right.
And it reflects that there are 4 people who are supposed to travel under this invoice.
Yes.
And 4 tickets issued down in the lower left-hand corner, correct?
Yes.
With ticket numbers associated with that flight?
Yes.
Alright, now, I'm going to put up the first agent coupon for that flight. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up there and hand you 852, the first page. Make this easier.
Yes, thanks.
Now, looking at 852, and the front part of it that has the ticket information for it, and looking at the exhibit, agent coupon, which is part of that exhibit, does the ticket number on the front of that invoice match the agent coupon on the exhibit 853? Or, 853, yes.
Yes.
Alright, let's put the second one up. And, excuse me, that was for an M. Jackson, correct?
Yes.
Alright, let's put the second one up, the second agent coupon. Now, this particular agent coupon has stamped in the middle of it, void, VOID, correct?
Correct.
And could you look at the front of the document, the first page with regard to the ticket number? Does the ticket number on the agent coupon for a Michael LaPerouse match the ticket number on the front of the invoice for this particular document, 853?
Yes.
Now, with regard to your business practices, what does it mean when you have an agent coupon that has void on it?
The ticket was not used.
And how is it that you become informed, in your normal business practices, that the ticket was not used?
In our normal business practices?
Right.
Either they don't show up at the airport, or somebody calls in and tells us to cancel the reservation.
Are you given any information from the airlines themselves that reflects whether the person was on the flight or not?
No, yes. For e-tickets, the person has to pick up the e-ticket.
And if they don't, then you're notified?
Then we're notified.
And?
To the best of my knowledge.
And the particular stamp, void, that's on the ticket agent, or the agent coupon, on this one for Mr. LaPerouse, is that placed on there by your staff in the regular course of your business in the performance of their responsibilities?
Yes, yes.
Is this document used to adjust any billings that may have occurred where a ticket wouldn't be used?
Certainly.
Let's go back to the document you have in front of you, which is 853, okay. So we're all on the same page. 853 is a billing for 4 tickets in the total amount of what?
$6,644.
And if this particular ticket to Mr. La Peruque isn't used, then you have to adjust your billings accordingly, is that correct?
Yes.
Alright, let's go to the next one. The next agent coupon involves an individual by the name of Marie Cassio. Do you see that?
Yes.
And on the exhibit that you have in front of you, the itinerary invoice, does the name Marie Cassio appear?
Yes.
And is the ticket number assigned to her on the exhibit number of the first age, 853, the same as the ticket number on the agent coupon that the jury's looking at?
Yes.
And again, this one is stamped with void, correct?
Correct.
Meaning she did not take the trip?
She did not make that trip.
Alright, let's put up the last one. The last agent coupon associated with the invoice 853 is an Aldo Cassio, correct?
Yes.
Does the ticket number on this particular document, the agent coupon, match up with the ticket number on the first page of 853?
Yes.
And again, this one is stamped with void, correct?
Yes.
Indicating the person did not make the flight?
Yes.
I think we can have the lights, Your Honor. Thank you. I have 2 more documents, Your Honor, that I'd like to have marked for identification. 854 and 855 for identification purposes. I'm showing them to counsel. He's seen them.
All right.
Alright, Mr. Dietz, I'm going to take this back so we don't lose it. You can swing around there. I'm going to show you a document it's actually a 3-page document, front, back and then front, entitled, Client Summary, and ask you to look at that document. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
And does that document for the time period of, may I have it back just a second, just to make sure I've got this right, February 5, 2003, through February 12, 2003, reflect the summary of the transactions and services provided by your company to MJJ Productions?
Not this in front of us. This is only 2 pages.
No, the back page.
I'm sorry. I can't hear the witness.
He said. Lean into it and say what you said.
I'm sorry. I thought we did more transactions than this in that time frame. There must be another client summary.
This is only for the 5th to the 12th.
Okay.
Objection. Leading and argumentative.
Overruled.
Go ahead and take the paperclip off and look at all 3 pages. Have you looked at all 3 pages?
Yes.
Okay.
But they only reflect activity through February 12th, when this is for February 1st through March 31st.
Okay. But the caption at the right has a larger period, correct?
That's right.
Alright. Now, I want to show you.
And there's transactions that you've shown me that are clearly not on here.
Now I want to show you Exhibit 855.
Okay.
And take the clip off and look at them front and back, if you would.
Okay.
You've seen those documents before, correct?
Yes.
You saw them last night?
Correct.
Are those the other transactions that you had in mind between this time period in question?
Yes.
Objection. Calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
And this particular document, which is 13 pages in length, covers the period the 12th of February 03. Correct? And ends at the end of March of 2003, correct?
Yes.
Now, alright. Why don't you keep these for just a second? Alright. Now, Mr. Dietz, with regard to the exhibit 854, does that have an account number on it?
854. Yes, it does.
What's the account number?
1359.
What's the customer?
MJJ Productions, Inc.
You're going to have to lean into the mic.
MJJ Productions, Inc.
Alright. Now, let's look at exhibit 855, if we can.
Okay.
What's the billing account on that particular series of transactions?
MJJ Productions, Inc.
That's the customer?
That's the customer.
What's the account number?
1656.
It's a different account from the other, from Exhibit 854, correct?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to the information that is reflected in those client summary forms. Okay. The information reflected in those, is that information that you keep in the normal course of your business?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. There's a lack of foundation as to who prepared these and where they came from.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
The objection is overruled. You may answer.
Is the information contained in these documents, client summary, information that you utilized in your business to bill clients and to keep a history on the services you provide to those clients?
Is the information?
Yes.
Yes, the information is.
And then that information, in this particular case with regard to MJJ Productions accounts during this time period, was put into this format, correct?
Objection. Lack of foundation.
I don't know what the question. Really what you're asking him. Maybe you do, but I don't.
If you don't, the jury doesn't, so I better start over again. The documents that you have, let's start with them individually. 854, the client summary for 854, okay?
Yes.
Alright, did your business prepare those documents?
Yes.
And, you have to lean into the microphone.
Yes.
And did the information contained on the document, 854, come from business entries of documents that you maintained in the regular course of your business, information that you maintained?
Yes. It's a computer-generated report. It's something we made up. It's something that the computer generates based on the subpoena we received, which was to give us all the transactions that occurred between February 1st and March 31st.
And between the documents 8, in 855, the document 855, look at that. That's a client summary?
Uh-huh.
Is that the same? Would you make the same statement with regard to that document? It's information generated from your computers?
That's correct.
And?
For the purposes of the subpoena.
Correct. Now, with regard to those particular documents, do they cover the transactions that are reflected in the exhibits 223 through 249?
I haven't had time to do that, but I would assume they do.
Well, yesterday.
Excuse me. Move to strike as speculation.
Sustained. Stricken.
Yesterday, you were asked to look at those client summary forms and compare them with certain transactions to confirm whether or not particular invoices were sent in certain amounts for certain flights, correct?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
Can you say that again?
I can have it read back to you. Just a moment.
Yesterday, you were asked to look at those client summary forms and compare them with certain transactions to confirm whether or not particular invoices were sent in certain amounts for certain flights, correct?
Yes, we briefly looked at this client summary for a few, I would say for less than 30 seconds. And I actually remember going back to it once or twice with respect to one or two invoices on it.
Right.
Rather than every one on them. So I couldn't attest to every one. In general.
We discussed in general.
We discussed the ones you've already brought up.
Let's just establish that, okay?
Okay.
I want to move Mr. Sneddon's comments about what he discussed, move to strike those.
I don't have a problem with that, Judge. I'll just ask the question.
All right, go ahead.
Mr. Dietz, with regard to the documents 854 and 855.
Yes.
Yesterday you and I discussed how those documents were prepared, correct?
Yes.
Objection. Leading.
Yes.
Overruled. The answer is yes. Next question.
And then I asked you to take those documents and look at a couple of specific flights, did I not?
Yes.
Objection. Leading. Your Honor.
Overruled.
Now, with regard to the transaction reflected in the document 853.
Okay.
All right. Were you asked to look at your client summary form to determine whether or not the invoice reflects a charge of $6,000? Whatever it is, $6,600 for those 4 people, or whether it reflects a flight of one person?
I believe it reflects the price of one person.
I'm going to move to strike that answer on the grounds that it's based on hearsay. And there's no foundation.
Your Honor, I think the records are before the court, and he's simply using this to verify the authenticity of those records.
Objection to speaking responses.
Well,
it seems to me you haven't offered them as business records.
I was getting there. I was trying to lay the foundation for that, as to the relevancy first, and then I was going to go into that. Perhaps if you.
I think if you go to the business record foundation first, and then they're either admitted or not admitted, then if they're admitted, then you can question him in the way you're questioning him.
All right.
And I know I might be not quite understanding still the record that he's looking at.
Let me ask one other question. It might help the court guide us through this.
All right.
Make it a little clearer. Mr. Dietz, you're going to have to lean into the microphone there, okay?
Uh-huh.
Mr. Dietz, with regard to the Exhibit 853, okay. That's the one that has the void tickets on it.
Yes.
Does your business maintain information that would reflect the adjustment as to whether or not the original invoice is sent to your client for payment or some subsequent amount is sent to reflect the voids?
The original invoice may have definitely been mailed out. Actually, no, I know that it was not mailed out. It was adjusted to reflect that one passenger, that only one e-ticket was issued.
Now, going to the client summary form, okay?
Yes.
Do the client summary forms contain information maintained by your business in the normal course of business to reflect the transactions that occurred on the exhibits that I showed you, 223 to 249?
Yes.
And that information is kept in the normal course of your business, correct?
The information on that summary is.
Yes.
Yes.
And with regard to the mode and time of the preparation of that information as it's placed into your computer, it's made at or about the time of the transactions, is that correct?
Objection. There's a lack of foundation. That's the connection. Lack of foundation.
Overruled. You may answer.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
And with regard to the mode and time of the preparation of that information as it's placed into your computer, it's made at or about the time of the transactions, is that correct?
Yes and no.
Yes and what?
Reservations can be made. An invoice is generated only when the reservation is turned into a ticket.
Right. And that's what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Objection. Move to strike counsel's comment.
Well.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Just so there will be no question about it, the exhibits we're talking about, except for the one exhibit, 223, all reflect transactions that occurred, correct? Tickets were issued?
Except for.
I'm sorry. I have to object. What exhibits are we talking about, except for 223? Vague.
I'll clarify it. I asked you to look at the documents 223 through 249, and then I asked you to look at 852 and 853, correct?
Yes.
All right. Are those all transactions that occurred between you, heir apparent, your company, and MJJ Productions?
Yes.
And with regard to the information contained on those transactions, is that the information that's downloaded to your computers?
Yes.
And you use that for your business purposes?
Yes.
And with regard to the exhibits, now getting back to 854 and 855, all right?
Yeah.
They contain a client summary, correct?
Yeah.
Of all of those transactions from information that was loaded into your computers at or about the time of the transactions.
Correct.
All right. I move they be admitted.
And I would object.
Let me ask one more question. I want to ask one more question, and this may take care of it. With regard to the client summary form, okay. And the information that's on that form, okay. Does that information, from that information, are you able, in the due course of your business, to be able to provide invoices to clients to be paid that may be different than the original invoices that were sent out?
Yes.
All right. Now I move they.
But not in that form.
I understand that. But that's what the information is used for, correct? The information that's in your computer.
Yes.
I'm going to object. It's leading. Argumentative. Statements of counsel.
Overruled.
I think the point you're trying to make, and I think you made it, but let's just make sure that the jury understands what you're.
Move to strike comments of counsel, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The client summary form was a form that was produced specifically to respond to the search warrant, correct?
Yes.
That form itself is not something that you use ordinarily, correct?
Yes.
Alright, but the information on the form is all information that you house at your place of business to conduct business, correct? It was just downloaded into a different format?
Yes.
Objection. Well, I was going to object. Compound.
Sustained.
Alright, we'll break it up. Is it information that you maintain at your place of business to conduct business?
Is what?
The information on those forms.
Yes.
Is that input into your computer?
Yes.
Alright, and is that information?
That's the output. That is the output from input.
Well, let's go back. It's a matter of semantics.
Okay.
The information on the form is the output?
Correct.
The information that went into the computer is the input?
Correct.
The information that's input is information that you keep in the normal course of your business?
Yes.
It happened to be output into this format for this trial?
Yes.
But reflects information that you keep?
Yes.
Alright, now I move that they be admitted.
And I object and request either to have an opportunity to voir dire or ask the court to reserve ruling until cross.
Well, I think he needs to ask him some questions about this, so I'll let you voir dire now, rather than wait. I don't think that's productive.
That's fine. That's why I offered. Thank you. Mr. Dietz, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. On 854 and 855, it's my understanding that you had not seen those documents before they were shown to you by the district attorney. Is that correct?
Before last evening?
Yes.
I might have looked at them in preparation for coming up here.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
And those are not documents that you downloaded from your computer, is that correct?
I don't believe I downloaded them. I believe one of my accounting staff did.
Okay, so you're assuming that that was something somebody on your accounting staff did, is that correct?
I'm pretty certain that it's something that somebody did on my accounting staff.
You have not had an opportunity to verify whether or not the billing amounts, the invoice amounts to the particular client, are accurate in each regard on those two exhibits. Is that correct, sir?
Do you mean the invoices to the statement?
Yes. In other words,
To the client summary that's been presented?
let me withdraw it. Your question indicates that my question was not clear.
All right.
On 854 and 855,
Yeah.
these client billing summaries,
Yeah.
they show invoice amounts to the client, correct?
Correct.
You have not had an opportunity to determine whether or not the invoice amounts shown on those documents are accurate in each case, is that correct?
Not in each case.
And these documents, as far as you knew, were prepared for the purposes of this litigation, is that right?
Yes.
I have no further questions on voir dire, and I object.
Does that material on the printouts on 854, 855, is that a compilation of the material that's in your computer on this particular account?
Yes.
All right, your objection is overruled. They're admitted as a compilation. But after that,
I should have let you ask the questions, Your Honor. We'd be way ahead of the game.
well, I've just got to start this break early. That was so painful. Laughter.